July 13th, 2022, Tamarac, Florida. A frantic 911 call comes through. Someone just walked into their friend's apartment and found her on the floor, covered in blood.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Oh, ma'am, I don't know the address. I just came.
Okay, what is the apartment number? Do you know if that has a building number?
I could go downstairs and check one second.
Tell me exactly what happened. Okay, on the phone.
Oh, my God.
I don't know, right? You can't say it. I walked in and she was on the floor and I was pumping her chest. I seen like blood from her neck, like she got covered her neck. I threw a handful. No, bro.
The caller's trying to do CPR, but it's already too late. 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson had been stabbed multiple times, her throat slashed from ear to ear. The only witness? Her small dog trapped in a back room. But here's where this story takes a turn nobody saw coming. The person who did this wasn't some random intruder. It wasn't even a man. It was her friend, a woman who flew 1,000 miles just to make sure Kayla never saw another sunrise. And girl, the reason why? Make it make sense. Before we get into what happened that morning, you need to know who Kayla was. Because this wasn't just another young woman who lost her life. This was somebody people genuinely loved. Her family set up a GoFundMe page after her death, and the way they described her says everything. Kayla meant so much to so many people. She was an amazing daughter, a very loved and adorable big sister, niece, granddaughter, and cousin, whose bond was like no other. Everyone loved her tremendously, and she was a friend to all. Her beautiful smile would light up any room she walked into. Always made an impression with her compassion, humbleness, and loyalty. That wasn't just family being nice. That was facts. People who crossed paths with Kayla, even once, walked away remembering her. She had that kind of energy. In 2022, Kayla was living in Tamarac with her mom. It's about 30 minutes outside Fort Lauderdale, quiet area, not the kind of place where you expect something like this to happen. She was grinding hard, working as a bartender and waitress. Friends said she was well known in the South Florida nightlife scene. Everybody wanted Kayla doing their bottle service because she made the whole vibe better. She wasn't just pouring drinks. She was the energy in the room. Now, around a year before she died, Kayla started seeing this guy named Raulto Robinson. They weren't official or anything, but they'd been messing around for about a year. They met at a party through mutual friends, and from there, they just kept linking up. It wasn't serious, at least not in the meet my parents kind of way, but they were cool. They spent time together. He'd come through, she'd go out, and that was their thing. The night before Kayla was killed, July 12, 2022, Raulto came by her apartment around 7 in the evening. He needed to pick up some money she was holding for him. He did real estate, had some funds wired to her account, so he swung by to grab it. Kayla was home with her dog. They chopped it up for a bit, and then he left. She had to get ready for work anyway. Every Tuesday night, Kayla worked at this spot in Lauderhill, Jamaican party night. She'd be there from evening until about 4 in the morning, doing her thing, making her money. That Tuesday was no different. Raulto went home, Kayla went to work, and that was supposed to be that. But the next morning, Wednesday, July 13th, Raulto tried calling her around 10. No answer. He texted. The message showed delivered, but she wasn't responding. He kept trying. Still nothing. Then her phone started going straight to voicemail, like it had been turned off or died. Now, Raulto knew Kayla's routine. She worked late, so sleeping in wasn't unusual. But something felt off. He kept calling, kept texting. Yo, why you not answering the phone? And when he still got nothing, he decided to just pull up. First time he came by, he didn't see her car in the usual spot. Kayla had a handicap sticker, so she'd always park in the handicap space right in front of the building. When Raulto didn't see her car there, he figured maybe she wasn't home yet. He knocked on the door anyway. He could hear her dog inside, but Kayla didn't answer. And that was weird because Kayla didn't leave her dog alone like that, especially if her mom wasn't home. Her mom worked as a flight attendant for Spirit Airlines, so she was gone a lot. If her mom was out of town and the dog was home, Kayla should have been there too. Raulto left, went to get something to eat, but he couldn't shake the feeling. He kept calling, kept texting. Same result, nothing. So he drove back. This time, he circled around to the back of the apartment complex, and that's when he saw it. Kayla's car, parked outside, away from her usual spot. He checked the license plate just to be sure. Yeah, that was her car. So now he knew she was home. He went back upstairs and started banging on the door. Hard. "Your car is here. Why you not answering?" Still nothing. Then he tried the door handle. It was unlocked. He pushed the door open and what he saw stopped him cold. Kayla was on the floor. Blood everywhere. Her neck, her body. She wasn't moving. For a second, Raulto just stood there. 1,000 thoughts running through his head all at once. He stepped inside, then stepped back out. He couldn't process it, but he knew he couldn't just leave her there like that. So he pulled out his phone and called 911. You can hear it in his voice when the call comes through. He's not even explaining what happened at first. He's just trying to get help there. The operator's asking for the address, the apartment number, trying to figure out what's going on. Raulto's barely keeping it together. Before the paramedics even arrive, the operator tells him to start doing CPR. So he does. He's pumping her chest, trying to bring her back, even though deep down he probably already knows. There's too much blood. The cut on her neck, it's too deep. By the time deputies and paramedics get there, it's over. Kayla Hodgson is gone. Body cam footage shows Broward County Sheriff's deputies pulling up to the scene. Raulto's outside, hands covered in blood from the CPR, trying to explain what happened. He's in shock, talking fast, going over the same details again and again because his brain can't catch up to what just happened. He tells them he'd been calling her all morning, tells them about coming by the first time and not seeing her car, tells them about coming back and finding the door unlocked. The deputies are listening, taking notes, but they're also watching him close. Because right now, he's not just a witness. He's the person who found the body. And in cases like this, that makes you a person of interest real quick. Raulto's on the phone with someone, might have been a friend, might have been family, trying to explain it all over again.
I don't know, right? You can't say. I walked in and she was on the floor and I pumping her chest. I seen like blood from her neck, like she got cut on her neck. Bro, I ain't for no. Bro.
I'll be here for you, all right? I appreciate you talking to me and being cooperative, Tom. All right? We're going to have a million questions to ask you. Just bear with us.
They ask him to go through the timeline again and again. What time did you come by yesterday? What time did you leave? When did you call her? When did you come back? Did you see anybody? Did you touch anything? Raulto answers everything. He's cooperative, even though you can see he's falling apart. He keeps repeating the same thing. He walked in. She was on the floor. He started doing CPR. He saw blood coming from her neck like she had a cut. While all this is happening, other deputies are talking to neighbors, trying to figure out if anybody saw or heard anything. One neighbor mentions her Ring camera, but says it's been off. Another neighbor didn't hear anything unusual. No yelling, no screaming, nothing. One neighbor doesn't even answer the door when deputies knock. Later, she comes out and the deputy's like, "Yeah, that was me knocking earlier." She opens her door to crime scene tape already on the doorknob. PSA, if law enforcement is knocking, maybe answer. Meanwhile, Raulto's still going over his story. He's explaining how he and Kayla weren't officially together, but they'd been seeing each other for over a year. How they met at a party. How he came by yesterday to pick up money, and she was fine. How she went to work, and he went home. How this morning, he couldn't reach her, so he came to check on her. And that's when he found her. As deputies are processing the scene, they're also making calls, trying to reach Kayla's family, specifically her mom, who lives with her, but is currently out of town working. They find out she works for Spirit Airlines, so she might be mid-flight when all this is going down. Through Rialto, first responders manage to get in touch with Kayla's best friend, Janisa. And this conversation starts filling in some gaps. Janisa tells them she and Kayla share their locations with each other through iPhone. The night before, early morning of July 13th, really, she checked Kayla's location around 4:25 a.m. Kayla was driving home from work, heading down Commercial Boulevard toward her apartment. Janissa had also talked to Kayla earlier that night around 1 a.m. While she was still at work, everything seemed normal. Then the deputies ask about Kayla's ex. Because in cases like this, you always gotta look at the ex. Turns out, Kayla had an ex-boyfriend named Javon. They'd broken up a couple months back, but they were still in communication. Not dating anymore, but still talking on the phone here and there. Janisa gives them what info she has. Black male, somewhere between 26 and 32 years old. But she doesn't know his last name or too many other details. At this point, investigators are building a list. Raulto, the guy she's currently seeing. Javon, the ex she's still talking to. Anybody else who might have had access to her apartment or knew her routine. But then there's the dog. Raulto mentions that Kayla's dog, Dior, is still inside the apartment somewhere, probably locked in one of the back rooms. Deputies go in to check, and sure enough, the little dog is there. And here's the devastating part. Crime scene photos later show the dog's paws covered in blood. The dog walked through the scene. The dog saw what happened. That's the only witness. As the investigation continues, Kayla's family starts arriving. First, it's her cousin, then more relatives, then neighbors who knew her. People are gathering at the base of the apartment complex, trying to understand what happened, waiting for answers. The deputies are trying to be respectful, trying to give the family space, but they also can't share too much because it's an active investigation. The family's asking to see her, asking what happened, and all the deputies can say is, "We're looking into it. We can't share too much right now." More family members keep showing up. Kayla's aunt. Her mom's on her way back from a flight, expected to land around 8:30 p.m. Everyone's devastated. Everyone's confused. Because Kayla wasn't the type to have enemies. She wasn't into anything that would put her in danger. So who would do this, and why? The family's grief is raw and real. At one point, they ask if they can pray over Kayla's body before it's taken away. The deputies agree, but they set limits. Only a few people and nobody can touch anything. It's still a crime scene. When the time comes, Kayla's grandmother and a couple other family members are allowed to go up. You can hear the pain in their voices as they pray over her body, trying to find some peace in the middle of all this chaos. While all this is going down at the crime scene, investigators are doing what they do, collecting evidence, following leads, talking to anyone who might know something. And that's when things start getting real interesting. See, deputies on the scene notice something right away. Bloody footprints. Leading out of Kayla's apartment, down the stairs, across the walkway. Fresh prints, still visible. Someone had walked through all that blood and tracked it right out of the building. They start following the trail, marking it off with crime scene tape, making sure nobody steps on the evidence. The prints go down the stairwell, fade out a bit in the parking lot, but they're there. Clear enough to tell investigators that whoever did this didn't just disappear into thin air. They walked out, casually, like they had a plan. Then there's the surveillance footage. One of the neighbors had a Ring camera pointed toward the building, and when investigators pull that footage, they see exactly what they needed to see. Around 5 a.m. on July 13th, just hours after Kayla got off work, a figure is caught on camera leaving her apartment. But this wasn't just somebody walking out. This person was in full disguise. Wide-brimmed hat pulled down low, COVID mask covering the face, gloves on both hands. You couldn't see skin, you couldn't see features. This was deliberate. This was somebody who planned not to be recognized. At first glance, you might think it's a man. The way the person moved, the build, the outfit, it all screamed trying to hide identity. But investigators kept digging. They pulled flight records. They pulled cell phone data. They tracked down Uber and Lyft rides in the area. And that's when a name started popping up that nobody expected. Sakena Thompson, 31 years old, from New York. Now, Here's where this whole thing gets messy. Sakana wasn't some random person. She knew Kayla. They were friends. Or at least, Kayla thought they were. Let me back up and explain how all these people are connected, because it's about to make your head spin. Sakana Thompson was a nail technician from Springfield, New York. She was known around her area, had regulars who loved her work, posted on social media all the time, seemed like she was doing her thing. But anybody who followed her online could tell something was off. Sakana's social media wasn't just nails and selfies, it was drama. Constant drama. She was in a relationship with this guy named Terry. And girl, let me tell you something. This relationship was toxic from the jump. Sakana would post videos of them being all lovey-dovey one week, then the next week she's posting about how she's done with him, how he's trash, how she's moving on. A week after that, they're back together again. It was a whole cycle. But the biggest issue? Terry was a cheater. Everybody knew it. Sakana knew it. And instead of leaving him, she stayed. And every time he messed up, she'd post about it online. She'd make videos talking about trust issues, about how men ain't loyal, about how she was going to handle anybody who crossed her. And she wasn't playing either. Sakana had multiple videos on her page where she's literally saying, "You know I throw hands, right? You know I throw hands, right?" She'd talk about fighting people, about getting revenge, about making sure nobody disrespected her and got away with it. Most people would see that and think, okay, she's venting, she's going through it. But looking back now, that wasn't venting, that was a warning. So here's what happened. In early July 2022, about a week and a half before Kayla was killed, Sakana and Terry flew from New York to Miami. They were going to a nightclub, supposed to be having a good time, partying, whatever. While they were there, they ran into Kayla. Now, it's not clear if Kayla knew who Sakana was at this point. She might have known Sakana as Terry's girl, or she might have just met her that night as a friend of a friend. Either way, the three of them were all at the same spot. Sakana, Terry, and Kayla, all in the same club, all dancing, all vibing. But at some point during the night, Sakana started noticing things. The way Terry was looking at Kayla, the way they were talking, the way they were dancing. And that jealousy, it kicked in hard. Sakana already didn't trust Terry. She'd been through this with him before, catching him texting other women, seeing him flirt, dealing with his lies. So when she saw him getting a little too close to Kayla, she wasn't about to let it slide. Here's the thing, though. Sakana didn't confront him right there. She didn't make a scene at the club. She played it cool. But inside, she was plotting. The next day, July 11th, 2022, Sakana put a tracker on Terry's Range Rover. She wanted to know where he was going, who he was seeing, what he was doing. And sure enough, that tracker told her everything she needed to know. Terry drove to Kayla's apartment. Now, we don't know exactly what happened when Terry pulled up to Kayla's spot. Maybe he told Kayla he was single. Maybe Kayla didn't even know Sakana existed. Maybe she thought Terry and Sakana had broken up for real this time, because with how much they were on and off, who could keep track? But none of that mattered to Sakana. All she knew was that her man, her toxic, cheating, ain't no good man, was at another woman's apartment. And in her mind, Kayla was the problem. Not Terry. Kayla. So what did Sakana do? She started planning. Here's what investigators pieced together from flight records, cell phone data, surveillance footage, and Uber receipts. On July 10, 2022, Sakana Thompson booked a flight from New York to Fort Lauderdale. She didn't tell Terry she was coming back. She didn't tell anybody, really. She just booked the ticket and got on the plane. She landed in Florida on July 11th. For the next 2 days, she moved around the area, staying low, watching, waiting. And the whole time, she was preparing. She put together a disguise, hat, mask, gloves, everything she needed to make sure nobody would recognize her. Then, in the early morning hours of July 13th, around 5 a.m., right after Kayla got off work and made it back home, Sakana made her move. She used a fake Uber account to call a ride to Kayla's apartment complex. The driver dropped her off outside the building. From there, Sakana walked up to Kayla's second-floor apartment, already dressed in her disguise. Now, Investigators still aren't 100% sure how she got inside. The door was unlocked when Raulto found Kayla later that morning, but it's possible Sakana knocked and Kayla opened it, thinking it was someone else. Or maybe Kayla left it unlocked when she came home from work, tired, not thinking anybody would try something. Either way, Sakana got in. And what happened next was brutal. Sakana didn't just stab Kayla once or twice. She stabbed her multiple times. She wanted Kayla to suffer. And when the stabbing wasn't enough, she took a sharp object. Investigators never said exactly what it was, and she sliced Kayla's throat, ear to ear, deep enough that there was no coming back from it. Kayla bled out right there in her own apartment. The only witness was her dog, Dior, who was locked in a back room, barking, but couldn't do anything to help. When it was over, Sakana walked out, calm, collected. She walked right through the blood, leaving those footprints investigators would later find, down the stairs, out of the building, and into the early morning darkness. The surveillance footage caught her leaving. Hat low, mask on, gloves still in place. She didn't run. She didn't panic. She just walked away like she'd completed a task. And here's the wildest part. After she left Kayla's apartment, Sakana went straight to meet up with Terry. They got in his car, drove to the airport, and flew back to New York together. Like nothing happened. Terry didn't know what Sakana had just done. Or at least, that's what investigators believe. Because while Sakana was on that flight back to New York, Kayla's body was still on the floor in Tamarac, waiting to be found. By the time Raulto found Kayla later that morning, Sakana was already long gone, but she left behind a trail, and investigators were about to follow every single piece of it. First, there were those bloody footprints. Crime scene techs documented every single one, photographed them, measured them, followed them all the way out of the building. They led down the stairwell, across the parking lot, and eventually faded out near the street. But the pattern was clear. Whoever killed Kayla walked out on foot. Then there was the surveillance footage. That Ring camera didn't just catch a random person leaving. It caught someone in a full disguise at 5 a.m., right around the time Kayla would have been getting home from work. That wasn't a coincidence. Detectives started pulling records. They pulled Uber and Lyft data for rides to that apartment complex in the early morning hours. They pulled flight records for anyone flying into Fort Lauderdale in the days leading up to the murder. They pulled cell phone tower data to see whose phone pinged near Kayla's apartment around the time of the murder. And all of it pointed to one person, Sakana Thompson. Her phone pinged near Kayla's apartment on July 13th around 5 a.m. Her Uber account, under a fake name, had requested a ride to that exact address. Her flight records showed she flew from New York to Fort Lauderdale on July 11th and flew back to New York on July 13th, just hours after Kayla was killed. But here's the thing that really sealed it. Investigators found Sakana's social media, and when they started scrolling through her posts, they saw exactly who they were dealing with. Videos of her talking about fighting, videos of her talking about revenge, videos of her and Terry arguing, breaking up, getting back together, videos of her promising that anybody who crossed her would regret it. She had literally put it all out there for the world to see. And then there was the tattoo. When investigators pulled photos of Sakana, they noticed something on her arm. A Bible verse, Romans 8:31. It reads, "What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us?" Let that sink in. Sakana had a Bible verse tattooed on her arm, the same arm she used to stab Kayla Hodgson to death, the same arm she used to slice an innocent 23-year-old woman's throat wide open in her own home. Make it make sense. But hey, investigators had all the evidence they needed: cell phone data, surveillance footage, flight records, Uber receipts, social media posts, bloody footprints. All of it pointed directly at Sakana Thompson. Now they just had to find her. For 3 weeks, Kayla's family waited for answers. For 3 weeks, the community stayed on edge, wondering if the person who did this was still out there. For 3 weeks, investigators worked around the clock, building their case, gathering evidence, making sure everything was airtight. And on August 3rd, 2022, They finally made their move. Sakana Thompson was arrested in Springfield Gardens, Queens, New York. She was picked up by NYPD officers and held without bond at Rikers Island. From there, she was extradited back to Broward County, Florida, to face charges, 1 count of first-degree murder. When the news broke, Kayla's neighbors, the same ones who'd been scared to leave their apartments after the murder, finally felt like they could breathe again. People came out to talk to the news cameras, saying they were relieved, saying they felt safer knowing someone was behind bars. But the shock didn't go away. Because when people found out who the killer was, they couldn't believe it. A woman, not just any woman. A woman Kayla knew. A woman who traveled over 1,000 miles just to take her life. And all because of a man who wasn't even faithful to either one of them. The community was relieved, yeah, but they were also heartbroken all over again. Because this wasn't some random act of violence. This was jealousy. This was rage. This was a woman who decided that if she couldn't have Terry, nobody else could be happy with him either. Now, here's where things get even more twisted. While Sakana was sitting in jail, waiting for her trial, she found out she was pregnant. 2 months pregnant, to be exact. And instead of reflecting on what she'd done, instead of showing any kind of remorse, Sakana tried to use that pregnancy to get out. She wrote a letter to the judge, a whole letter, talking about mercy and sympathy, asking to be released so she could give birth outside of jail while fighting her case. Let me read you what she wrote. To your Honorable Judge Casey, I'm writing this letter to you in hope of finding mercy from the court to allow me to give birth outside of jail while also fighting my case. Mercy. She wanted mercy. The same mercy she didn't show Kayla when she was stabbing her over and over again. The same mercy she didn't show when she sliced Kayla's throat wide open. The same mercy she didn't show when she left Kayla bleeding out on the floor of her own apartment. People were outraged. Comments started flooding in online. She pregnant now and wants the judge to release her. Girl, bye. The audacity of it all was just too much. And you know what the judge said? Nothing. Because the request didn't even deserve a response. Sakana's bond was denied. She stayed right where she was, locked up in the Broward County Jail, waiting for her day in court. For over 2 years, this case sat. Sakana's defense team was probably scrambling, trying to figure out how to explain away all that evidence. The cell phone data, the flight records, the Uber receipts, the surveillance footage, the social media posts, all of it pointed directly at her. Then, in October 2024, Sakana Thompson finally went to trial. And when she took the stand in her own defense, she tried to claim she blacked out. That she didn't remember attacking Kayla, that it wasn't intentional, but the jury wasn't buying it. Because how do you black out and also plan a whole disguise? How do you black out and book a flight? How do you black out and call an Uber to the exact apartment where your target lives? How do you black out and then calmly walk away, meet up with your boyfriend, and fly back to New York like nothing happened? Nah, that doesn't add up. On October 15, 2024, the jury came back with their verdict. Guilty. First-degree murder. Sakana Thompson was convicted, and now she's facing life in prison. No parole, no early release. Life. And honestly, that's exactly where she belongs. Because what she did to Kayla wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a moment of anger that got out of hand. It was premeditated. It was planned. It was cold-blooded murder. Period. After Sakana's conviction, Kayla's family could finally start to heal. It didn't bring Kayla back. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave them some sense of justice. Some sense that Kayla's life mattered, that her death wouldn't be forgotten. In the days and weeks after Kayla was killed, her family and friends came together to honor her memory. They held candlelight vigils outside her apartment complex. They released balloons. They prayed together. They shared stories about who Kayla was, the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into, who made everyone around her feel loved, who worked hard and stayed humble. Her family launched a GoFundMe to help cover funeral expenses, and the donations poured in. Not just from people who knew Kayla, but from strangers who'd heard her story and wanted to help. People who were moved by the tragedy of losing someone so young, so full of life, so undeserving of what happened to her. Kayla's story became a reminder of something we don't always want to face. That domestic violence and toxic relationships don't just hurt the people in them. They hurt everyone around them. And sometimes, innocent people pay the price. Kayla wasn't in a relationship with Terry. She might not have even known how deep Sakina's issues went. But because Sakina couldn't let go, because she chose revenge over reason, Kayla lost her life. And that Bible verse on Sakina's arm, Romans 8:31, if God is for us, who can be against us? It's supposed to be about faith, about trusting that if you're doing right, nothing can stand in your way. But Sakina twisted it. She used it as some kind of justification, like God was on her side while she committed murder. And that's not faith. That's delusion. Kayla Hodgson was 23 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She was working 2 jobs, making her money, living with her mom, taking care of her dog, being a good friend, a good daughter, a good person. She didn't deserve what happened to her. Nobody does. Her story is a reminder to pay attention to the red flags, to take social media threats seriously, to leave toxic relationships before they turn deadly, and to remember that jealousy, unchecked, can turn into something far worse than heartbreak. Kayla's family will never get her back, but they can hold on to her memory. They can make sure her name isn't forgotten. They can make sure that when people hear her story, they remember her for who she was, not just how she died. Rest in peace, Kayla Hodgson. Your light was taken too soon, but it won't be forgotten.